I go in with a predetermined, rotation of how I feel like going in the game, maybe 2-1, 1-1, 3-1. Try to keep these guys fresh, and then I have a good feel. It's some things you just been doing a while. You gotta know. It could be motions, it could be swings, it could be carries in a row, where you can kind of read body language. I can kind of tell my guys now, I've been around them long enough when they need a blow. So it's a feel thing and also a script thing.
Let's go to Tyler Donahue, Lions 247, and Audrey, you're on deck.
Thanks. Jaywan, how you doing? Good to speak with you.
You too, Todd.
I'm sure you're thrilled to get Noah Cain for consecutive starts this time around. What through 2 games back on the field, where is he at physically, mentally for you?
He's in a great place. He had nerves, the first game. I can tell the first 2 series he was in, he was pressing, almost like the first time playing again. He had those jitters, and, it goes back to 2 years in a row, the kid started a game and he got hurt in both games. So he had to get over that mental hurdle. And I think when I pulled him out the game and got Kevon in and got him, kind of gave him a chance to reset and, kind of get his flow into the game. And I think that's when it kind of took off. And like, you know what? I've been here before. I'm over the nerves. I made it through the first drive, the first start. Now I'm kind of settled in and let the game come to me.
Let's go to Audrey Seider. Greg Pickle, you're on deck.
Hey, Javon, thanks for your time.
You too, Audrey.
I wanted to ask you about Kevon, since you mentioned him. What do you like about kind of the strides that he's taken on this year and the role that he's playing?
You see growth, and you see him taking coaching. We had an incident, and I thought he played well in the Wisconsin game. More credit to their defense early in the game till we made adjustments. It was a moment where you saw the youth in him, where he ran a play where the ball should have stayed right. He bounced left trying to make a play. And I always teach my guys situational football. You also got to know the flow of the game. When a game is close like it was, it's 0, I think it was 0-0 at that time. When we were struggling on getting ourselves to be a second and manageable, third and manageable, we can't take negative plays. And we pride ourselves on being a running back room who don't deal with negative play. We don't want negative plays at all. We've been a very efficient unit. And, you get us down to 2nd and 14, we'll make it hard to convert on a 3rd down situation, 3rd and long, in a game where, one mistake makes a difference in the outcome of a game. So it was a good learning experience for him. I think having Noah Cain going to be a great influence for him on learning how the game flows and how to trust your running ability, because he's a kid who's gifted. He got the ability to make people miss. He can jump cut like a small guy, but he don't give himself enough credit when he can run behind his pads and just make the crowd move. And so I think seeing Noah approach to the game going to be a great, I want to say not a mentor, but a great example of how to play the game, how to play the position, especially with a guy who got so many different attributes to be a complete running back.
Let's go to Greg Pickle, and Alexis, you're on deck.
Hey, Coach, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Greg.
When you look at a weekend like this from a recruiting perspective, what are the biggest challenges you face as an assistant coach, both good and bad, I guess you could say, and how important is this weekend, since you've been here for a few now, in terms of getting guys into a class, whether it's this one or down the road?
Well, the best recruiting is winning. It starts with winning the game. None of that other stuff matters. The atmosphere is going to be great. It's no different than what it was last week. So you have to make sure your priority, your focus is on the game. You love up the kids when they get here. The atmosphere will take care of itself, but the product, the kids still want to come to a system where, the product's going to be, you can show your product. You can see the success on the field by position as a team, and not get caught up in it. So I think it's a unique thing for us at Penn State to be able to have over 100-some thousand people here dressed in all white. The atmosphere is going to be amazing. And the kids kind of already get that feel. But the best way to continue a great recruiting class and finish recruiting class is winning. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters.
Let's go to Alexis Yoder with the Collegian, and Elton, you're on deck.
Jaywan, staying with the recruiting mindset, how did your relationship with the state of Florida develop, like your connections to high schools in that area, such as IMG Academy, and why do you always seem to target those schools when it comes to a recruiting standpoint?
Well, I'm from Florida, so I have a deep connection. My dad was a coach. My mom was a coach. I've been a coach down there for 6 years. I played in Florida. I'm connected with a whole bunch of friends that we grew up playing with each other and against each other. And it's a sign of respect. You know, when people in Florida trust you, they'll go to bat for you. When they don't trust you, you stay an outsider. So I got a unique background just because I'm from down there, and I come from an area where when we played back in the day, we probably had one of the best programs in all the state of Florida. So name recognition helped. I have a track record for doing this over 13 years, and they know when I get a kid from Florida, I take care of them like my own. And as far as going to schools, you want to go to schools where you trust the people that's coaching at those schools too, because you just can't go get a handful of kids because you never know how they develop, how the transition going to be, because everybody can't come to Penn State. So you got to be selective on what type of kids that fit this area, especially when it comes to some city kids. City kids used to be in the city schools, you know, where. So I think it goes hand in hand, and I think at the end of the day, it's the biggest thing is relationship. It's no different than dating. When you're trying to find a husband or a wife, it's relationships. You got to build to that point where it's a trust thing there before you take the next step.
Hey, Jaywan, hope you're doing well this morning. I wanted to know if you could give us an update on John Lovett, where he's at right now, 2 games into the season.
Well, that's a question for Coach Franklin, so I'm gonna pass on that one.
Let's go to Nubias Wilborn next. Go ahead, Nubias.
Hey, Coach Seider, hope you're doing well today.
Same to you, brother.
Man, always a pleasure, man. As an assistant coach who deals with the recruiting, how do you navigate talking to the future kids, you know, knowing the rumors? Yeah, Franklin's been involved in these things pretty regularly. How do you handle that, just kind of navigating, talking to them and letting them know what's really good?
Well, I hope, through the process, you build a point of trust between you and the kids you recruit, and where they can take your word, because the only thing we control is what we can control. So I don't deal in the uncontrollable situations, where there's rumors and that. And I just tell the kids, like, we at Penn State, our main focus is 1-0 in Auburn this week. And this school sells itself. I mean, we Penn State, we're a top 10 program. We're going to play Auburn. That's the only thing matters.
Mark Brennan, go ahead.
Jaywan, with as loaded as your room is, what's your message when you're talking to running back recruits about coming to play at Penn State, knowing there's a lot of talent there already in that room? And I know you can't speak about specific recruits, but just generally.
Well, you always tell them, Mark, the best player's going to play, no matter you're a freshman, sophomore, junior. And, fortunately for us, we had a role where, these guys were leaving out of here 3 years, and the most important thing now, we're in a new age of kids, and they want to be fresh leaving college football. They don't want to go to a system where for 3-4 years, you're going to be taking every carries, 40, 50 carries, because all the kids we recruiting, they all think about playing on Sundays. And you got to understand where the landscape is, and you got to understand the dynamics of that, and you can sell it. You look at Miles, been here for 3. You look for Saquon, been here for 3. Journey was on that track for being 3. So it speaks volume of our process and how we go about handling the kids, and then being transparent, and for us to be a national championship team, we have to have rooms that's that deep, because look at last year. I mean, you a couple players away from being down to 2 running backs, period. So you just tell them opportunity to play, and the best player going to play, and you stand on that.
Let's go to Tyler Donahue. Greg Pickle, you're on deck.
Jaywan, you told us that you really challenged Evan Ford during the offseason to take the next step in his career. Where is his development at right now? And can you also give us an indication of how Keziah Holmes is coming along in his second year?
Well, as far as Devin, the thing about Devin, if I was a head coach and he wanted to get into coaching, I'd hire him right away. The kid got a bright future. He got a bright mind in the game. His biggest hurdle, he overanalyzed things. And when you play football and play running back, you got to react on instincts. You got to react to your training, what you see on film, and just turn it loose. I thought last week was one of those weeks where he just finally turned it loose, whether with practicing the game and where he got out there and he was able to execute and play at a high level for us. So I was really pleased where he was at last week from a playing standpoint. As far as Keziah Holmes, he's developing. I mean, he's a young kid, one of the strongest running backs in the room, one of the fastest guys in the room. And he's still learning what it takes to be a running back. I told him last year when we had that end of the year meeting, we're using an athlete playing running back. You got to understand the intricacy of playing running back, from being able to run behind your pass. You're not going to always be the fastest guy. Learn how to finish in protection. So he's a kid that's very honest with himself. He's aware of where he needs to work on. And it's a process. And he's willing to do whatever it takes to get better and develop. And he's a kid that takes coaching. Great young kid. And like I said, like a lot of times it should be hard to play at running back at Penn State, the way we recruit and the way we developing guys. So he's waiting his turn. He's willing to do whatever it takes to get better. He's a kid that asks a lot of questions. I thought he had a great summer. He was one of those kids that was always over here doing extra, grabbing Journey on the weekend. They was coming over here doing stuff together. So it's just a process. We always said, I go back to these reference. Miles was his third year before he became a guy. He had played behind Saquon, barely played the first 2 years. It took Journey 3 years before he came on. So sometimes it takes guys a little bit longer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like guys who cry about redshirt. Some of our best players ever played this game redshirt and develop. Some guys don't get the same coaching as from Coach Z to Coach A. So it's a developmental standpoint too for a lot of these kids when they come here.
Let's go to Greg Pickle and then New Bias.
Coach, what's the one thing you missed or maybe you didn't get all the information you could have last year compared to this year now that you can go back on the road and recruit in the fall?
As from a recruit standpoint?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I just think being in front of people, being on the sideline, being able to watch practice, to go from Miami Central to Miami Northwestern, use them as an example, and see who that coach from that school compliment from that team that they played against. Because word of mouth, to me, from a lot of people that I trust, means a lot. Going to Northern Virginia and actually knows coach in the area on Jimmy Chris, for example, who's here. How is he as a player when you play against him, coach? Does he got a finishing mentality? Do you see him developing on this level? So people you trust, man, goes a long way because you can't see everybody. So there's got to be certain coaches out there you trust that, that guy does a good job of not only selling his kids, but he sells the kids in the program. So, hey, maybe I need to take his word for this kid. And just like to me, and I'll go back to this, I know I'm jumping all over the place, to be able to get in front of people and see kids in pressure situations. Because you'd be amazed how much you can learn about a kid watching him practice, goal line standing, whether the defensive player, an offensive player, quarterbacks, playing quarterback. I like to see a guy live. I like to see his mechanics. How do he drive the ball in traffic? How do he move in between tackles? Kickers, you want to see those guys live. So for me, being present is the most important thing for me. And I know I'm a little bit different, but I think you give yourself a best chance for more hits on kids than you do misses when you get a chance to see them.
We have time for a few more. Let's go to New Bias and then Mark.
How do you talk to recruits as well as current players as a running back coach when it seems more and more the running back position is devalued in the NFL? And how do you combat that and change that possibly?
It's funny you say that because maybe from a draft standpoint, it's devalued. But the position is still the position. At the end of the day, the running back impact the game probably more than anybody besides the quarterback. The center, the quarterback, and then the running back touch the ball more than anybody. So at some point, you're going to need to pound the game out to win it. You're going to be on a goal line stands where the ball probably going to go to the running back. You're going to be in a 4-minute offense situation where you want the running back the ball in the running back end. And if you look, I would say the last 2 years, there is a value of running backs coming back. You look at the draft, guys getting drafted higher. I think what hurt a little bit to those guys getting drafted because you playing with 2 running backs now more so than one. Like in the past, one guy might be the bell cow. Well, now you can play these guys a little bit longer with your first and second down and bring the third down back. Or you got a guy who's a 3-down back, but you still want to take care of a la Saquon, Miles, keeping those guys fresh so you can get 10, 12 years out of those guys is the premium for all pro teams. Because when you got a special talent, you want to get them as long as you can instead of 3 or 4 years. So I think the game is changing. They just being smart. That's why these guys, if you really study the history, you don't get so caught up in the first one. You work your tail off and try to get to that second contract is what you sell the kids on.
We got time for 2 more here. We'll go Mark Brennan, and then Audrey, you'll finish us up.
J1, you mentioned Journey earlier. Kind of where is he at? I know last year you were a little bit concerned about everything that was kind of heaped on him in a difficult situation. How has he kind of come out of that, and what do you see his future as being? Thank you.
Well, I think, Mark, it's hard to speak for Journey. I think he's maturing. He's learning the process of what the next step is. I think having a whole year away from it, and coming to grips on what's real. You had his moments last year during the season, prep for the combine, and then the draft hit him. And I'm sure beginning his first game this year probably hit him again. But he handled everything with strides. He's working hard on trying to get his degree and then figure out what he want to do next. And my job is just to be there and be supportive for him and not try to make up his mind for him. Don't get in coaching if it's not something you want to do, because this ain't for everybody. And because I know a lot of people say, well, he should get in coaching, but it's a lot of great players play the game that don't want to coach. So I think it's got to be in you. It's got to be in what your heart is. And the good thing, he's still young. He got time to figure this thing out. And I'll be there the whole process with him, the whole step of the way.
And Audrey, wrap it up for us.
No pressure. J1, wanted to ask you about Alan Zamitis and kind of the changes that he's brought in, and what do you like about getting to work with Alan a little bit?
I'll tell you this, and it's a great story. I'm glad you brought him up. We was interviewing on Alan, AZ we call him, and I got off the interview. I was so impressed with him, his energy, the way he carried himself. I went to Coach Frank. I said, I don't know what we're going to hire him as, but that's a guy I would want on my staff if I'm the head coach. I stand on the table for him. His energy, he connect with people, he connect with kids. I mean, every time I see the guy, you like, when you got good energy people, you want to be around. Like I guess you're attracted to that person. He's a guy I want on my staff. And so I went to Coach. I said, Coach, I don't know what position you got open, but we need that guy back. He's a Penn Stater. He knows this program inside and out. He's got deep connections in all the regions we recruiting, from even his time in playing out and staying in Tampa. So it really helps. He's been a great access for us. I mean, he connect well with the kids. He fits in great in the program. He don't make it about himself. He make it about Penn State and Coach Franklin. So I think he's been a tremendous hire, a major upgrade. Now, I don't want to say upgrade because that's a slap in the face of the guys. He's been a tremendous access to us to help us get to this #1 recruiting class.
All right. Thank you very much, J1, and appreciate everybody joining us.